Welcome to Gateway Sermons, and thank you for joining us as we journey together through God's Word.
In 1990, the pastor of a very large church that he had started in 1977 could not be going better. This pastor had a good salary, he had book royalties. He had basically arrived. He was the pastor of a church called the Good Shepherd Community Church, and it was his dream to be a pastor. And if you would have asked him at that point, what do you want to do for the rest of your life? He would have said, I want to keep doing this. I want to pastor for the rest of my life. He had seen so much amazing things happen, particularly his heart was for teen pregnancy and counteracting the work of abortion clinics. And he had even allowed a teen who had gotten pregnant to stay in his home and seen her come to faith. And there was so much good happening in his community. And this was 1990, and he was praying and reading the Word, and he felt convicted that he needed to do more as he was the chair of a crisis pregnancy in the community. And so he thought, I want to move towards civil disobedience against this abortion clinic. And so he did. Him and a group did peaceful, nonviolent disobedience about 9 times over the course of 12 months. 7 of those 9 times they were arrested. Well, eventually he was he stood before a judge, and he was ordered that he had to pay $2,800 for preventing 10 abortions over that time, and $19,000 in legal fees. But in his heart, he could not pay that price. He could not pay that because he thought, if I pay this, it's going to go to support something that I don't believe in. He said, I'll pay restitution to any other organization that I owe, but I just can't in good faith pay this. So he stood before the judge in Portland. He quoted MLK and said, I'm doing what I believe is right because this is an injustice. And the judge was a black man who it really resonated with him when he was speaking. And the judge said this, one day you may see me out there standing on the sidewalk beside you, but today I am a judge and I must follow the law. So he sentenced him to 2 days in prison and this fee. Now the government began to threaten they were going to garnish his wages, that they were going to take his wages as a pastor to pay back this clinic since he was refusing. But before they could do that, he resigned as pastor of this church. He was now on the front of the newspaper making waves, and it wasn't exactly how he thought 1990 was going to go for him. And according to Oregon law, he could now only make minimum wage in order that they would not garnish his wages. And a little bit later, he was sued again by another clinic, and this time the judge wanted to make an example out of him, and he leveled a settlement against him, $8.2 million. $8.2 million, $250,000 per defendant. And this is the largest judgment settlement ever against a peaceful protest. They were trying to make an example out of him. He began to think, how would I pay for school? My kids go to a private Christian school. How can I pay for that? What would happen to my whole life? He was doing what he felt was right. He was doing what he thought was the good, honorable thing. He was doing what he believed God wanted him to do. And yet now he was set back further than ever from where he thought he wanted to be. Sometimes the good guys go down. Sometimes the people who do the right thing lose. Sometimes brokenness seems to be winning. Of course, when they asked Barna, this group that polls, what is the question? If you could ask one question to God, what is the question you would have to ask God? And skyrocketing above all the other questions, this question came through. Why is there pain and suffering in the world? This is not a question. This is the question. Why is there so much brokenness? And in the midst of brokenness, what often happens is the brokenness internalizes, metastasizes, and begins to spread all throughout our spiritual life. And we begin to experience discouragement, disillusionment, doubt, maybe even wondering to ourselves, is God even real? Have you ever been there? Have you ever been there at the point where you can no longer even read the word or pray or hear or come to church because you feel so internally broken that you don't believe and you can't hear the words that are coming to you as good news? This is where Israel's at. Israel has been promised that they're going to be delivered from slavery. It's been hundreds of years now. Finally, their hero, their deliverer, rises and says, let my people go to the Pharaoh. And right before doing that, he had just had a meeting with the people of Israel, the leaders, and said, God came to me and said he's going to set us free. And so they worshiped and they fell on their face and they bowed and they thanked their God. And then Moses turns around and goes to the Pharaoh to say, hey, God said you got to let them go. And the Pharaoh says, no, I'm going to make it worse. They have to keep doing their job of making bricks. But now I'm going to remove the resources of straw. Their life is going to get a whole lot harder. And he oppressively burdens them with more work, heavier work. And now their faces have fallen. And they begin to become angry at Moses, saying, you gave us false hope. We thought this was over with, but here we are, worse than we were before you came. God judge you, they say to Moses. And now Moses has taken on their doubt, their fear, their discouragement. Moses goes back in prayer to God. He asks this question at the end of chapter 5, which is where we left you last week. And the question he asks God is, why did you send me? This is a cruel joke to give your people hope but not really do anything about it. Why did you send me? And it's in this context that God speaks and says to him, I'm going to tell you why. Because I'm going to deliver my people. Nothing has changed, Moses. It's so interesting because the question Moses asks is why, but here's the thing we all know about the why question. God rarely answers that question, right? He rarely says, well, here, X, Y, and Z. He rarely gives us the why. More often than not, God does not answer the why. He answers the who. And that's exactly what we see at the top in chapter 6. God speaks to Moses and says, now you're going to see what I'm going to do to Pharaoh. He speaks to Moses and says, I am the God of Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, the God Almighty. By my name they did not know me as Yahweh. They knew me as God Almighty, El Shaddai. Now they know me as Yahweh, as my true covenant name. And here's what God is trying to say. God is saying, listen, I am known for using broken vessels to deliver broken people to experience wholeness. He says, the whole reason it's getting harder and worse is because it's in this moment that when I show up, when no one expects me to show up, it's going to be amazing, and all the nations will stand back and know the strength of the one true God. God says, I'm known for using broken vessels like you, Moses, to deliver broken people like the Israelites to experience wholeness. So we're going to take apart this phrase, this sentence, I am known for using broken vessels to deliver broken people to experience wholeness. We're going to take it phrase by phrase. I'm going to show you in this passage where that comes up. We're going to do it backwards. The first thing that God reminds them is, hey, I want you to experience wholeness in life. And the first gift of wholeness is freedom. We see this in verse 6. Look what he says. Say to the people of Israel, I'm the Lord, and I'm going to bring you out from under the burdens of Egyptians. I will deliver you from slavery to them. Galatians picks up on this theme and says, just like Israel was enslaved by oppressive Pharaoh, everybody in this world is enslaved to sin, Satan, and death. That is, we all experience sin. We all commit sin, right? If you don't, no one here is perfect. No one pretends to be perfect. We all admit, yeah, I got stuff in my life that is broken. And so now what we even have is this culture in kind of when you go to therapy, we talk about addiction. Everything is an addiction, right? And we talk about everything is a disease. It's kind of language we're using because it feels like trying to do the right thing is so out of our control and our power. And this language is the same language Scripture would use for what it calls sin. That is, we all experience this brokenness that we keep doing again, and we don't even know why we're doing it. And what Galatians 6, chapter 5, verse 1 would say, for freedom, Christ has set us free. That is, Jesus has come to give us freedom from the addictions that have caused consequences, that has caused brokenness, that has caused a life of pain. Jesus wants to enter into your circumstance and give you freedom. Now, here's what I find so interesting about Galatians. When Paul says this in the book of Galatians, you'd think he's talking about like living la vida loca. You know what I'm saying? Like he's talking about delivering Ricky Martin. Like he wants to deliver some wild child from some wretched sin. And that's true, he does. But in the context of Galatians, The biggest opponent that Paul had was not the irreligious, but the religious community. Are you hearing me? The biggest opponent that he had was people who thought they were good enough on their own merits. When Paul says God wants to give you freedom, he's in Galatians, he's not talking about living la vida loca, all right? He talks about that sometimes, but more often than not in Galatians, when he says, I want to give you freedom, he's saying, I want to give you freedom from trying to earn your way into the heart of God. I want you to get off the treadmill because you're running yourself ragged and you're not getting anywhere. Here's what he says, I want to give you freedom from trying to earn your way into God's love. That's what the opponents were in the Galatian church. They thought that if you did enough good things, God would finally love you. And Paul comes and says, good news, he loves you without your performance. You don't have to try to earn your way into God's heart. I used to say this a lot, and I'll say it again today. Trying to earn God's love is like trying to take a shower in mud. The harder you work, the dirtier you get. Here's what I'm saying. So often we don't realize that even our good works are wretched to God because what they are is a self-salvation project. Here's what I mean by that. When we do good things apart from the grace of God, what we're essentially telling God is, I don't need your forgiveness. I can earn my way out of this. I can do it on my own. We're looking at God and we're essentially putting a middle finger to the face of His gospel saying, no, I don't need you. I can do this. And this self-salvation project is the most offensive thing to God. It's mud to God because what it is it says, I don't need your forgiveness. God would disagree and say, you do, and quit wearying yourself. Quit exhausting yourself by trying to earn it. I've given it as a gift. Man, I feel like if we really believed the freedom that God offers us in Christ, it would change everything. Like just one simple way it would change is maybe we wouldn't be so defensive. And now I'm preaching to myself, all right? You guys can kind of listen to my internal dialogue here. Man, this is something I struggle with so desperately, wanting to prove myself, constantly feeling the need to defend myself when accusation comes up against me. You guys like that? You guys resonate with that? Someone says something to you, and you're like, no, Olive, you shut up. I'm just playing. No, Dada, I'm saying, no, I'm not your, I'm saying, but like, just so defensive, so quick to respond to whatever, right? But I wonder, man, if I really believed that Christ was successful on my behalf and I took that into the center of my life and I detonated it into every part of my heart, I wonder if I would be so worried about what other people think of me. If I really believed what God thinks of me in Christ is I'm forgiven, I'm free, maybe I would have more ears to hear. Right? But I guess I've struggled with this my whole life. Back in 8th grade, I remember I played the big bass, the stand-up bass, the dun boom boom. I was like 40 pounds. The bass was heavier than me. You know what I mean? It was funny. I swear, I'd carry the thing. They'd be like, "Is that a floating bass?" No, it's just a little Mexican carrying it. And I would. It was funny. It was this big bass, and I was pretty good at it. But my teacher actually came up to me and said, "Joe, I think you should audition to make it into this private music school." All the kids some of the kids who were really gifted were going and auditioning for this class and to try to get into the school. And I said no. I said no, but not because I wasn't good enough. I actually was okay. I said no because I was afraid of failure. What if I wasn't enough? What if the audition didn't go well? What if I forgot the piece I was supposed to memorize? What if it didn't matter how much I practiced, I wasn't good enough? And so I didn't. And in some ways, I feel like my whole life has kind of been like, I've kind of tried to stack the cards in my favor so I don't have to experience failure because I don't do well with failure, because something deep inside of me says, man, if I fail, I'm a failure. And if I'm a failure, there goes my value, there goes my identity, there goes who I am. And the gospel, God has been trying to get a hold of my face since 8th grade and even before that, trying to say, Joe, do you not hear me that the success that Christ has given to you on the cross is enough for you? It's enough. Maybe you're like me. Maybe we can come out of hiding and stop finding safety in success and try to find safety in the coverage that Christ gives us. This is true freedom, friends. This will produce worship. We're set free from the performance so that we can purely worship. Here's the freedom that God is offering to us in Christ in verse 6. What the next thing He offers us to bring us this wholeness. He says, I will redeem you with an outstretched hand. I will redeem you with great acts of judgment. Now, that word in Hebrew is the word go'al. It means to redeem. And if we use it in the noun version, it's go'el. And it has this idea, maybe you've heard of kinsman redeemer. And it's kind of, no one talks like that. So maybe a better, helpful translation for us to kind of internalize this idea of being the family champion. All right? Now, if you were the family champ, if you were the hero of the family, you essentially had this responsibility to take care of your family. Like, for instance, the idea communicates like you had to take care of and have responsibility for the needs of your people, right? So, like, if someone in your family was wrongly murdered, it was your responsibility to go and bring justice to them. So you had to chase down that person and bring justice, all right? If someone in your family had to sell off land because they couldn't afford the bills, if you were well off enough, it was your responsibility to buy that land because you wanted to keep the land in the family, to protect the family reputation, to protect the family business. If your family was really deep in debt and someone had to go sell themselves into slavery, you were to go buy them back. You were to put up your money and say, I want to buy my family's reputation back. I want to purchase their freedom on their behalf because I want to protect my family. Okay? If someone in your family died and there was no one to inherit that inheritance, you had to step up and protect the widow and produce an heir for this family money. You were the family champ. Your job to vindicate, to be the avenger, the protector, the one who would stand up and stand in the gap when things got nasty. I was trying to think, well, what's kind of like a modern equivalent of like being a community family champion? And the best one I could think of is sports. See, if you grew up in my hood, I grew up in a place that was it was rough. Okay, it was kind of the ghetto, and there was not a lot of ways. You didn't see a lot of success stories of people who got out and made something of themselves. And so when somebody latched onto sports and was doing really, really well, and if they made it through college into the league, oh my gosh, we all felt like we made it into the league. He was our hero. Everyone would look to him, and he would give back sometimes to the community and create rec centers, and people would talk about him and tell stories about him, and everyone would know who he was, and they would have his picture hanging places, and it was kind of like this idea, like he made it out, he made something of himself, and he became this sort of hero in the eyes of the people. I mean, we do the same thing here in a small town for different reasons, right? Like Andy Ruiz is kind of like the people's champ, right? He knocked out this guy who looked like God made him to box, you know, and he was the people's champ, and then we have other guys like Royce Freeman who make it out and make it into the league, and he, you know, he's from Imperial, but he's ours, right? He's a Valley, you know what I'm saying? Like we all own him, whatever, you know, wherever he went doesn't matter because we have he's our champ, right? Here's the thing I know though about that. That's heavy. That's heavy burden to be that guy, to have so much weight, to have so much pressure. What if you don't go as far as you wanted to go? Now you have the weight of this community hoping on you, and there's this internal guilt. You can kind of say, man, I should have done more. I wish I could have done more. I wish I could have done enough. And this even happens in the family unit, right? Well, if you talk to therapists, they'll talk about how sometimes when a family is particularly broken or experiencing some setback, sometimes a child he gets like donned the role of hero, of Messiah, and it's his job to succeed because the family's so broken. You need to bring us out of poverty, and more often than not, when someone has that role in the family unit or in the role of a community, it is crushing to them because no one could live up to that standard. No one could actually be that. Maybe you were that. You were the good kid. Everyone else was bad, and you were the kid who did enough, and you succeeded. But the Bible tells us only God can be the true family champion. Only God can bear the weight of lifting a whole community from the pit. Only God can be the one who stands in the gap for our family brokenness. It's not your role, child. It's not your role, it's not your role. It's the role of God to say, let me be the champ who bears the weight of the brokenness your community is experiencing. This is what God is promising when he says, I will redeem with outstretched arms. He said, I'm going to be the people's champ. I'm going to stand up for my family. I'm going to protect the family line. Pharaoh will not succeed. I'm going to set them free. I'm going to deliver them from their debt. This is Jesus. That's what Jesus does for us. Psalm 103 will say it this way. He redeems your life from the pit. You're in a hole. He redeems your life from that hole, and He brings you to health and fullness. I heard a story about a man named Dennis Amandi. Him and his bride lived in Kenya. And there was this little boy that they were walking by this hole once, and they heard this little cry, and it was this little boy named Benjamin. He had been abandoned into an 18-foot hole, into a pit in the Nairobi slum. And this hole was used as a public toilet. He could not abandon the kid, so after hearing the cries, for 2 hours, he got on his hands and knees, and he began to dig, and after 2 hours, he was able to release this child from the muck and the sentence of coming death on him. He took him to a Christian recovery home called New Life Home Trust, and he eventually adopted this kid as his very own. And he became part of the Dennis and Allison Omandi family. This is what Jesus Christ has done to us, friends. You and I were in the pit. You and I had a death sentence on our life that we could not pay or deliver ourselves from. You and I were broken beyond repair, and then the Redeemer who redeems our life from the pit enters into the muck and into the mire that we would be delivered. It's good news. It's good news. God says, I will be your Redeemer. Look at verse 7. I will take you to be my people. I will be your God. You shall know that I am the Lord your God, who has brought you out from under the burdens of Egyptians. This is the promise of covenant intimacy. He promises freedom. He promises redemption. He promises covenant intimacy. He promises oneness. We get covenant, right? Covenant is marriage. So me and my wife, about 5 years ago, in March 5 years ago, held hands and we made a promise commitment in front of a community of people, and we essentially said that we're going to be one, right? We're going to be unified. I said, I'm your people, you're my people. Take on my name in your life, and together we will make a people, all right, amen? And and the idea is we're going to create a space for ourselves, call it home, and we're going to be there together. And in the context of marriage, the way God designed it, it's supposed to be this beautiful place where you experience you're known, you're loved, you're secure, and you build the people for the sake of God. Like, this is the purpose of marriage. It's this covenant love. Unfortunately, we live in a day and age where most marriages are contractual, not covenantal. And contractual marriages say, if you do good things, then I will love you. But if you don't, I will leave you. I'll leave you or I'll love you depending on your behavior. But Scripture says, no. The purpose of marriage is supposed to be a covenant where you say, I am with you till the end no matter what. I'll never turn away from you. There's nothing you can do that will make me stop loving you. This is covenantal. I'm giving myself fully to oneness, to security, to unity. Today's marriages are often contractual. Even the way we date is we swipe left or right based on how they look, or based on how much they make, or based on their reputation, or whatever, right? And the idea is we tend to say, okay, you do these good things, and if you do enough good things, I'll love you, and if not, I won't. But the Bible tells us that that's not the way love is supposed to work, specifically in marriage. It's supposed to be a covenant. And when God says He loves you, He's not talking about dating. He's talking about marriage. He's not saying, I hope you do enough good things and then you're mine. He says, I love you and I give myself to you till death do us part. And those in Christ never die. See, what I'm saying is the covenant intimacy that God in Christ offers us is the kind of security and love that we all long for. The kind of attachment and relationship that our hearts are craving. And when God says, I'm going to be yours and you're going to be mine, He's using the language of covenant. And the last thing He says in verse 8 that He offers them is, I'm going to bring you into the land that I swore to give to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the one that I want to give them as a possession. And this is the idea of inheritance. He talks about freedom. He talks about being the Redeemer. He talks about covenant intimacy. And here we see He talks about inheritance. The land was promised to Abraham generations ago. They've been promised this inheritance a long, long time ago, and now it is coming to fruition where it's now fully theirs. Christians, I want you to hear that you too have been promised an inheritance. If you're in Christ, God has made a way so you sit at His table and you are an heir to the inheritance that belongs to Jesus. 1 Peter 1 verse 4 says it this way, according to His great mercy, we have been born again to a living hope through the resurrection of Jesus from the dead, to an inheritance that is imperishable, undefiled and unfading. It's kept safe in heaven for you. In other words, what you have coming it cannot be lost. You can't lose the gift of inheritance that is coming, that is yours. The land, the fullness, the gift of what God is going to provide you when He makes all things new again is safely being guarded in heaven for you. Matthew 5, Jesus says, "Blessed are the meek, they will inherit the earth." And what I want you to hear is the future coming inheritance should impact the way you live your day today. Like Bonhoeffer. Bonhoeffer was this amazing man he was a spy who opposed Hitler. He opposed Hitler several times and actually tried to put a hit out on Hitler. He was a pastor, a martyr, a spy, and like he's just this amazing man, all right? I'm just a pastor, not a spy, I promise. He was all these things, okay? And he's an amazing man, and the night before he was told that he was going to be taken to be executed, what he did 24 hours before dying is he gathered the prisoners where he was at in his precinct, and he began a worship service where he praised this God. Because he knew that death meant his deliverance. Death meant his inheritance. See, our future should hope how we struggle and how we endure in the midst of difficulty. If you are experiencing brokenness, listen to me, dear child. God has an inheritance waiting for you where He says, what is coming cannot be compared to what you're experiencing now. There is an inheritance that is safe in the children of God because the Father has purchased it by the blood of His own Son, and He has sealed it by the power of His Spirit. And so our Trinitarian God, Father, Son, and Spirit, is keeping safe what is yours and what is to come. It's good news. It's good news. It'd be like this. I'm going to update a little bit. John Newton kind of uses this illustration. Suppose that you found out that you had this rich uncle, and he was going to give you billions of dollars, billions and billions, all right? You're going to get lots of money from this rich uncle. And so you found out that you had to travel to New York. And so you were pretty pumped up. So you got on a plane, you hopped on a plane, and then you got into your Uber, and as you're riding on the way to get your inheritance, you're about a mile off, and your Uber breaks down, your phone is dead, you can't call another Uber. And so now you have to walk the last mile to go get your inheritance. How silly would it be to walk that last mile, pouting, shoulders slumped, asking, why me? God, why do bad things always happen to me? Why do you make your strongest saints suffer? Oh God, how long? How silly would it be for the person walking the last mile on his journey to his inheritance, be riches beyond compare? How silly would it be for him to wonder if God still loves him when God says, look at the end goal. I'm giving you an inheritance, riches unthinkable. And when you get there, it will be so worth it. We all look at that person and say, man, you're pretty ungrateful, aren't you? God changed your life and you're asking, why me? It's a good question. Why you? You don't deserve this inheritance, and yet it's yours. What I'm trying to say is I hope I'm not being dismissive of your pain. I hope you hear me as a pastor pleading with you to understand that what is coming has the power to transform what is you're experiencing presently. You see what I'm saying? That's inheritance. And he's trying to tell the people that because they're in chains and it hurts and it's been a long time and they're in the last half mile of their run thinking, I don't know if I'm going to make it to the finish line. And God's saying, I'm telling you, it's going to be worth it when I get you home. You're going to love what I have for you. And I can't help but see the comparisons between us as believers. Things start falling apart. And we wonder if God still loves us. Ephesians 1 tells us again, like I said, the Holy Spirit is the guarantee of our inheritance. The word in Greek is almost the idea of He's our down payment. Sometimes when you go to buy a house, you got to put a down payment, or if you get an apartment, you got to put a deposit in. The Holy Spirit is God's deposit that says, I will not leave you. I will not forsake you. I've invested in you, very important, valuable spirit. My spirit is in you. I will guarantee that I will get you home. See, what God is telling them is He's reminding them of the wholeness He wants to offer them. But they don't have ears to hear it. They don't have ears to hear it. Look at verse 9. Moses spoke thus to the people of Israel, but they did not listen because of their broken spirit and harsh slavery. See, I love that God still loves and wants to deliver the broken. Their spirits are broken. We talked about this last week, so I'm not going to harp too long on it, but I want to bring it up again because it's so important, needs pressing. Do not underestimate the consequences of failed expectations. how much that can break you and how much that can make you go into a tailspin. See, they believed that when God said he was going to deliver them, it was going to be quick, it was going to be easy, and here they are going through hardship, and now they say, I can't even hear your news anymore. I don't have ears to hear what you're saying to me, Moses. You're telling me all this good wholeness God wants to bring into my life, but I can't even believe it because it's so hard right now. I mean, life can sometimes do that to you. The fall it broke us. And here's the thing, feelings fell at the fall. And so when we base our life on how we're feeling in that current moment, sometimes it's hard to see if there's a God who still loves us. And so that's where they're at right now. Their spirit has been broken. It's cratered. There's holes. And they're saying, how can I hold on to the promises you've given to me when I can't even believe that you care, God? Do you have a broken spirit today? Maybe the marriage hasn't gone the way you intended. You tried, you did your best, but you still have the divorce papers sitting on your desk and you're thinking, really? Or maybe your children have grown and wandered from the faith and you see them on social media and you're thinking, I did not raise this child. Get off TikTok, all right? That's my advice. But they've grown in the faith and now they've wandered from the faith and you're wondering, seriously? And you have a broken spirit. Maybe your job relocated somewhere. The factory relocated and they took all the jobs with them and you were just a couple years away from retirement. Or maybe you went to a church where they stole money or they became power hungry or they hurt you or they harmed you or Christian friends who gossiped and betrayed you or you have the pink slip or the diagnosis or the paper or the bill that you can't pay and today you walk in here with a broken spirit saying, Pastor, I hear the words you're telling me that God is a God who gives freedom, redemption, covenant, intimacy, and inheritance, but I don't have ears to hear it anymore because wave after wave after wave has crushed me. Life in a broken world can do that to you sometimes. Can break us up inside. My encouragement to you today is don't throw away life in the next world because you have so little life in this world. If I was hungry and bitter because I did not eat today, I would not sabotage my opportunity to eat tomorrow. I remember the first time I sincerely doubted God and his love and goodness. It wasn't his existence. I knew God existed, but that he really loved me and cared for me. It was when I was in college. I was a senior. I was at my apartment in Whittier, and I remember specifically the location because I got a phone call that one of my best friends that we had thought was going to come back to school and was going to get healthy actually took a turn for worse, and they weren't going to come back to school, and we weren't even sure if they were going to live or not. And it felt like someone had physically punched me in the stomach. And when I heard the news, I fell on the kitchen floor in that apartment. And my roommate came to me and he sat with me. Together, we tried to pick up the pieces and tried to understand why is it that sometimes the good guys lose like this. She was a good person. She did so much good in my mind. It was hard for me to conceive. I knew the doctrine of sin, that all sinners, but still, I thought there's some other bad people who I wish had this disease, and she doesn't deserve this disease. And together we tried to make sense of this brokenness, and you know what? She died. She died. One night in her sleep, she had a seizure. She didn't have her mask on to get air, and she died. I still think about that from moment to moment. When Olive was born, which is 7 years after it happened, Olive was born, and I cried. I cried a lot of happy tears, but I did cry some sad tears too. And one of the sad tears that I cried was because I thought, man, one of my best friends from college will never meet my daughter. My wife could empathize because her brother, he was killed as well when she was in 9th grade. She was 14. And so she understood, I wish my brother could meet our daughter. And so together we felt broken. And the question that was kind of reverberating in our head is, what does God have to say about all this brokenness? Why is he allowing this? See, sometimes life circumstances can really break you up inside, and you can begin to not hear the freedom that's being offered to you. Here's what I'll say, church. I don't know the answer to that fully, but I can offer you this. 1 Thessalonians says, for those of you who are not experiencing brokenness, hear these words. Admonish the idle, encourage the faint-hearted, help the weak, be patient with all of them. Galatians 6 says, you who are spiritual, restore them to the faith. What I love is how Jesus always uses his strength to uphold the weak, the vulnerable, to deliver the broken. If you came in here today with a broken spirit, good news for you. Jesus loves to deliver the broken. Psalm 51 says he will, broken and contrite heart he will not turn away. In fact, I might say that brokenness is the one prerequisite to experiencing the fullness of his grace. Matthew 12, it says it this way about Jesus: a bruised reed he will not break, a smoldering wick he will not quench. I mean, this is incredible meekness. And meekness is not something that our culture values, you know? Someone says, man, I really hope I'm meek. No one talks that way. Because meekness is weakness in our eyes. We look at meekness and say, oh, that's weak. Stand up for yourself. Use your rights. But meekness is not weakness. Meekness is strength under control. I mean, the rest of the verse says he's going to bring justice to victory, all right? That requires some strength, but we tend to see those in opposition. And when Jesus is meek, he's not weak. In fact, it's because he is strong that's what makes him meek. He says, I'm going to hold this strength under control. I was watching BBC, the Natural History program on YouTube, because I'm a loser. I finally found out why YouTube video have cat videos. It's for Olive. She loves cat videos. Anyways, I saw this one came up that looked kind of vicious. I thought, oh, this is cool. Let's look at it. And it was about an alligator. And essentially, these wildebeests, they travel in this great migration. As they're walking across the land, they have to find places to stop and drink water. And so the crocodiles love this because the crocodiles wait, and it's basically Uber Eats. They deliver the food right to them, right? You know what I'm saying? It's Uber Eats for these crocodiles. So they love it because the migration's coming right to them. And so the crocodiles lay in the water and wait, and then these wildebeest come and drink water, and eventually, boom, they snap. And man, if you saw these crocodiles attack, it was horrifying and awesome. All right, it was crazy. The crocodile just snaps on this wildebeest, 600 pounds, grabs a hold of his neck, and then just like drags him into the water. It was terrifying. It was terrifying. It's like my deepest, like my worst nightmare, right? And then it's just this horrifying reality of the strength to pull in a 600-pound beast and to not let go in the jaws of this crocodile with so much strength. It was honestly intimidating, right? And then, of course, the narrator's like, these wildebeests look bewildered. It's like, okay, that's corny. You got bewilderbeast, got it. Funny. But it's true, though, because then the wildebeest are like, oh, my gosh, did you see Ted? Ted got dragged into the water by the crocodile. Yeah, hey, I'm thirsty. Yeah, let's go back. You know, and they go back. And then the next guy gets eaten, and that's just what happens, okay? There's evolution taking its course. The point is here, what's happening is this crocodile is using great strength to just kill off these strong animals. But then in the very next scene, that same crocodile is carrying in her mouth, her babies. Carrying her to safety. And I thought, wow, that's meekness. The strength to crush a 600-pound animal is the same strength that is used to carry her own children to safety. When God is for you, he is a God of strength who can do something about the brokenness in your life. He can stand up for you, stand up with you. Some people find a lot of security in saying, well, the reason there's so much brokenness in this world is because free will and people. No, God can stop this. But God in his strength is saying, I'm going to wait and hold out so that when things get really bad and I turn it around, then I will get maximum glory. But at this point, there's still brokenness. The brokenness is contagious. I mean, it's just what happens. Brokenness is contagious. Look what Moses says in verse 10. Go and tell the people of Israel, let the people of Israel go out of the land. Moses said, look, the people of Israel are not going to listen to me. How is Pharaoh going to listen to me? Moses has now internalized their doubts, their discouragement, their fear. Look, if Pharaoh doesn't listen, Israel's not going to listen. That's home court advantage. So I don't think it's going to work out, God. And this brokenness has now been internalized in them. Sometimes we can do that. We can transfer our brokenness, our discouragement onto them. And what I love is what God begins to say is, listen, in order to deliver the broken, I use broken people. See, Moses has lost his faith, but God is a faithful God who does not even need the faith of Moses to deliver. What happens next is unbelievable. Look at verse 14. These are the heads of the fathers of the houses. And I'm going to skip this, but from 14 all the way through verse 25, we get a bunch of begottens and begettens and names. This is the portion of your Bible reading program where you go, oh, okay, there we go, 26. All right? That's what most of you do. I don't want you to do that because there's beauty in these names, these stories. and these names tell a message, and I want to try to convey that message to you. I'm just going to point out a couple names, and we're going to see why these names are here in this portion of the story. First name I want you to look at is in verse 14. It says Reuben. Now, Reuben is messed up. A dude is, I ain't no one to judge. Reuben's messed up. All right. Reuben, in Genesis 49:4, is told this by his dying father. This is the blessing he gets from his dying father. He says, you will no longer excel because you got onto your father's bed, onto your father's couch, and you defiled it. I'm not going to explain that, but here's what happened, all right? You guys are looking at me for an explanation. I'm looking at you for one. It's getting weird. All right. Reuben slept with his father's wife while he was still alive. His stepmom, essentially. Things got really awkward at family reunion. Hey, aunt, mom, dad. It was weird, right? It was like this weird thing. And so Reuben is a man who's defiled his father's bed, his father's couch. His dad knows it. He knows it. Thanksgiving's weird, okay? And Reuben he's a broken man. Look at verse 15. It mentions two more names, the sons of Simeon, and then the next name it mentions in verse 16 is the sons of Levi. Now, I'm going to tell you their backstory. Genesis 34, their sister Dinah, she is raped. She's brutally attacked and raped by this man named, his name is Shechem. And the dad does nothing. Jacob doesn't do anything to stop this. And so eventually he goes and talks to the guy's dad and says, hey, this is what happened. Things got weird. And then Shechem goes and talks to the whole family and says, yeah, listen, I was thinking maybe we can do a treaty, a peace treaty. Your people can join my people will join your people. Just give me your wife and give me your sister, let me marry her, and it'll be good. Trying to dust it under the rug. And so Simeon and Levi are like, this fool's not going to get away with this, right? And so then they say, okay, here's the thing is you can become one with us as a people, but in our tribe, if you want to become part of our people, you got to get circumcised. So if you want this whole treaty thing to go down, you want to have my sister as your wife, everyone in the tribe has to get circumcised. Weird flex, bro, but that's what he says, all right? So now Shechem's like, okay, I'm good with it. You got. So he goes back to his tribe and says, listen, everyone needs to get circumcised. That's what they said. I don't know. That's their thing. And so that's fine, though, because it's going to be great. We're going to join lands. It's going to be a great business deal. Let's make it happen. You guys in? Okay, we're in. That's fine. So now they all get circumcised. In 3 days, as they're still healing from this pain, okay, Simeon and Levi grab swords and go and kill all of them. They take all of their stuff, and now they have enemies. Dinah's name means vindicated, protected. But here's the thing, man. I ain't for rape, but I'm also not for murder, all right? I can understand the anger, but I'm also not for mass robbing a whole tribe, people who didn't do anything wrong, just saying, you know what, I'm going to get you all, I'm going to kill you and everyone who's ever known you. That's what he does. That's Simeon, that's Levi. Let's keep going. Verse 20. Look at verse 20. Verse 20 says, Amram, who is Moses' dad, took as his wife Jochebed, his father's sister, and she hold up. What? I'm going to read that again. All right, Amram, I wonder what that says in Hebrew. Amram took as his wife Jochebed, his father's sister. Yep, that's what it says. He married his aunt, okay? He married his aunt. This practice is later in Leviticus 18:12 outlawed, and then it's made punishable in Leviticus 20:19. Let's keep going. Verse 21. The sons of Issachar are Korah, Nepheg, and Zitri. Now, Korah, okay, this dude literally starts a revolt against Moses in the book of Numbers. He gathers a bunch of people and says, we're against you. We're going to revolt. We're going to rebel against you, Moses. We're going to do things our way. And then Moses says, all right, let's pray about this. And tomorrow we'll see whose side God's on, all right? And so that's what they do. They pray about it. Next morning. It comes up. The showdown is big. And so now Moses says, all right, if you're on my team, get behind me. If you're on Korah's team, get on that side. And so everyone shuffles to their side. And then all of a sudden, boom, the earth opens and they're all swallowed up and dead. Awkward. The Korah rebellion is put down into the ground, literally. You know what I'm saying? The earth swallows them up whole. But this dude incited a revolution against God's leader, Moses, Korah. Okay. Verse 23. Aaron, he has a wife named Elisheba, and she bears two sons to him. Look what their names are, Nadab and Abihu, Eleazar and Itamar. The first two names, Nadab and Abihu, they presumptuously go to the altar one day and they offer this sacrifice to God that he's not permitted, and boom, God lights them up and the sacrifice is not consumed. They are. And God says, I'm a consuming fire and I will not take this half-hearted, strange fire worship. You worship me the way I ask, not the way you want. You hear me? And God lights them up. I don't know if you're hearing this. It's a pretty jacked up family, all right? We got incest, we have murder, we have profane worship, revenge, thievery, sexual deviance. We have bad dads. I mean, we have the whole gamut of sin and brokenness. So why does God stop the story and say, hey, let me just tell you who's going to deliver this? Because if I'm reading the story, I'm like, whoa, this is your plan, God? This is your team A that you're sending out there to deliver the people of Israel? These guys? Maybe you're asking that same question about yourself, right? God, do you want to use me? My broken family? Do you know listen, I don't want to blame my mom and dad for what they did to me. My therapist does, but I don't, all right? But man, there's a lot of brokenness back there. My grandpa was this, my dad was this, and now I do the same thing. And my kids, I see the same thing in them, and we're pretty broken, and you want to use us, God? I want to point you to Exodus 6 and say, God uses broken people to deliver broken people. This is just the way God works. My father-in-law is a junk man. He calls himself a junk man. He grew up in Tijuana, really poor. They never threw anything away because they couldn't afford it, you know? So he loves going all over the city, finding junk, bringing it home, repurposing it, and then selling it, okay? And then gambling that money away. That's just his pattern, all right? That's just what he does, okay? But he'll go find like sinks and random stuff and make it really beautiful and then sell it and get the money. He does it constantly. And I'm blown away because I can't even start a screwdriver. So like looking at him like, this guy's awesome, right? He says, I'm a junk man. It's what I do. And the other day, I kid you not, I wish I was joking to the story. We got there kind of late. We went to L.A. to visit family. We got there kind of late. And when we walk in, there's this huge, it's like an 8-foot tall painting. It's 8 foot by 4 foot. And it's like, it's clear, everything on it is repurposed. And it says, I love you so much, honey, to his wife with her name, Nina. I love you so much, Nina. Happy Valentine's Day. And I'm thinking, this is crazy. So I look at it, and everything on there is stuff he already had. He had the paint from another project. He got the wood, broke it up, and put it together, made it stand up, and said, Happy Valentine's Day, Nina. I would have thought that was really romantic. My wife walks right by it like, no big deal. My dad does this all the time. I'm freaked out because it's middle of January. All right, guys? I was like, it's January, though. She's like, yeah, it's fine, it's fine. I'm like, no, this is not fine. This needs help. He just finds stuff and wants to love on his wife, so he makes big giant cards in January for his wife for Valentine's Day. That's a lot of pressure for me. I shop at Vons, you know what I'm saying, for my card. Here's the thing about my father-in-law. He repurposes junk and uses it to make beautiful gifts of love. He repurposes stuff that people have discarded and uses it. And I think God's in the junk business too. God repairs that which others have discarded, and God uses that which others have deemed broken beyond repair. Stuff that has been discarded and left to the side, God says, I'm going to use that for my glory. Israel, I didn't choose you because you're great. I chose you because I'm great. And through your brokenness, my glory will be on display. See, God uses what others consider junk and discarded for His glory. And God wants to use this broken family to deliver broken people, because this is the business that God is in. Today, if you are saying, I am too broken to be used by God, hear the words of Exodus 6, where God would say to you, I use brokenness to deliver broken people to wholeness for my glory. This way, God's the only one who gets the credit. You can't get credit. If your family is this jacked up, no one's saying, yes, because we were awesome, right? No one says that if that's your family line. Man, I just wanted to push into you this idea that God uses broken people for His glory. You got a shady past, you got a cloudy future. God wants to use it for His purposes. Moses has anger problems. We hear about that later on. Aaron is clearly a bad dad. His kids get lit up by God. I mean, there's some issues here. And yet God says, I'm not done with using you for my purposes. Why? Why? Look at verse 7, verse 5. Here's why. The Egyptians shall know that I'm the Lord. The Egyptians will know that I am Yahweh, and that I stretch out my hand against them and bring the people of Israel out. Here's what God is saying, because at the end of the day, it's not about how broken you are, how broken they are. It's about how whole I am. See, God is in the business of repurposing, using broken people for His glory, because that's all that He has available. And when He does it, the world will stand back and say, our God is strong to save. Every other religion says, be good enough, earn enough. If you can measure up, then maybe God could use you. Christianity says, if you find yourself broken to the point of humiliation and fallen, your face is fallen because you don't know how God can use you, that's the one God uses. Why? Now, I didn't mention this name earlier on purpose. The woman that Aaron marries, her name is Elizabeth Elishaba. Her name is Elizabeth. She's from the family of Judah. Say, what does that mean, Pastor Joe? Well, there is coming one from the family of Judah. Many generations later, there is coming a man who's coming from the land of Judah, and he is coming as the great high priest who will deliver us from all of our brokenness. The family of Judah, they are the tribe in Israel that has been promised a coming king who will restore order. And Jesus is the one who is the King of Kings, the family of the high priest, who bringing together the great kingly power, great priestly power. He delivers broken people for His glory. Jesus is the great King of Kings, the great high priest, who answers how God could use broken people like you and I. I'll tell you what, sometimes it doesn't make sense when life is hitting you hard and there's so much brokenness internally or externally and you start to get discouraged, but I want to tell you there's a God who can use it. Remember that pastor I told you about who basically had to work minimum wage for the rest of his life because he didn't want his wages to get garnished? Well, that pastor, after resigning, he started a nonprofit ministry called the Eternal Perspective Ministries. And he began to write books, and he only made minimum wage at this job. He hired his wife on as a secretary in the ministry, and she only made a secretary's wage, and together they were able to provide for the rest of their lives through this ministry. They were getting paid really well, but now they were working minimum wage and a secretary, and that's how they made it work. And this ministry, Eternal Perspective Ministries, has been going for 30 years now. Initially, the plan was for 10 years for them to find a job at minimum wage and then to go back into the working as a pastor, making more money. But then the judge lengthened it to 20 years and said, for 20 years, we're going to put this out over you, this $8 million. Didn't work. And finally, after the 20 years came up, they said, we love what God's doing. We're going to stay in this business because all 100% of our royalties that we make off of the books, we get to give out. We give out back to mission 100%. And now they've been going for 30 years. And recently, a staff member came up to that pastor, Randy Alcorn, and said to him, I want you to know that we just gave out over $8.2 million to foundations. We just gave out over $8.2 million over the course of this time. See, what looked like an unbelievable setback was actually the purposes of God to say, I'm going to use this broken, jacked up situation. You're doing what's right. Stay faithful, and at the end, you're going to see my generosity. Then the world will know that I am Yahweh and that I save. See, God wants to be known as the one who uses broken people to deliver broken people to wholeness.
Thanks again for joining us. If you have any questions about today's recording, Gateway Church, or what it means to follow Jesus Christ, you can reach us through the contact section of our website at gwbrawley.org.